Hey everybody, it's week 2 of me recording this for our website, but we're going to roll with it and make the best of it. So this week again we'll have a video from me and then a blog entry and then a movie to watch. I'll go over all those 3 things. We're also going to just kind of put in place a permanent meeting time. Last week some of us met on Zoom at 8 p.m. on Thursday. We're going to do that again every week until our reality changes. So if you want to be a part of that and you haven't gotten that information, you can email me from the church's on the church website. You can find my email address, or if you have my phone number, you can text me and we'll make sure that you're a part of that. This week's message is from the book of James. We're going through books of the Bible that maybe aren't familiar to all of us, or maybe we just know the name of the book and don't know too much more. James is a letter written in the New Testament, and we think that the author of James is the brother of Jesus, James. There are a few different Jameses in the New Testament, but the author of James, the letter, is probably the brother of Jesus. And so it's a pretty interesting story. James has a pretty interesting story. If you read in John, I think it's chapter 7, James and the other brothers of Jesus confront him. And they say, hey Jesus, if you're doing all these miracles, you're doing all this stuff up here in Galilee, which is where they were from, and it was more of a small town, it wasn't as populated. They said, if you're doing all these things up here, why don't you go down to Judea, go down to Jerusalem, and kind of prove yourself. They don't think he can do it. They don't think that he's going to shine and he'll kind of be figured out. And so they doubt and kind of question Jesus. Later on, that's kind of the last we hear about that in the book of John. But in other books of the New Testament, we find out that James becomes this leader of the church. He's often mentioned by Paul in a few books, and we know that he was on a council in Jerusalem. And so he goes from this doubting brother to one of the leaders of the new church. So what does that matter to us today is kind of what I get into in the blog entry. And it's really about, can we have questions for God? Can we challenge him on some stuff? Oftentimes I think we think when we hear the term questioning God, it's a negative thing, whereas in fact, it's actually a healthy thing, I think. Having questions for God. Because really, what is God scared of? He's not afraid to answer any of our questions. Even his own brother, right, his biological half-brother, questioned him and said, hey, prove it to me. And so we, during this kind of crazy time in our life, can also have a lot of questions, maybe a lot of why questions. You know, why is this happening? Why did this have to happen my senior year? Why did my sports season have to get canceled? And I think when we verbalize that and talk about that and think about that, it's healthy. And those feelings and those questions don't get bottled up. They help us process those questions. So that's what that is about this week, so check that out in the read section. So our movie this week is Gravity. It's not based off of our time after church that we call Gravity, but it's actually a space movie with Sandra Bullock from a few years back. And in the movie, she is kind of trapped in space. She's alone, she's isolated, and she has to figure out a way to get back to Earth. I feel like we all are feeling a little isolated right now, whether it's from our friends, whether it's from just our circles in school or our sports teams. We're feeling isolated even though we're at home with our families. And in the movie, I want you guys to kind of look and figure out, who is she relying on to get back to Earth? Is she relying on herself? Is she relying on God? Is she relying on others? Is she relying on experience? Is she relying on technology? What is she relying on to get back to Earth, to kind of solve this isolation problem? And I want you also to think, what am I relying on right now to kind of get through this different time in our life? Am I relying on anybody? Am I relying on my friends through my phone or texting? Am I relying on my family? How much am I relying on God right now to kind of get through this time? And so look at the movie as you watch it. Try to figure out, who is she relying on to get out of this situation? And think, who am I relying on right now in my situation? So that's all for this week. I'll have a video for you again next week, and hope to see you then.